let's talk about it. That was Halo Reach. Um, that was incredible. I had so much fun with this game. I would have done it all in one part, but obviously with technical difficulties, the stream ended up cutting off. But that was incredible. Getting to see the birth of all of it. Obviously I know about Cortana. I don't know much about her in the way that the fandom does, or about the story, but I know that there is an AI called Cortana in the games. And to see the genesis of that is pretty cool. Especially because this came out on the 360, which meant it came out years after the first Halo. So to create not just a prequel but two prequels, obviously with Halo Wars, which is the very beginning of the saga, it was so much fun getting to see how these characters interact with each other, the impact of each loss. I felt like Carter could have fought a little bit longer, but to see that it was my character, Noble Six, that really pushed to end all of this, and when Carter says Cortana chose him, it really hit, because all it usually takes is just one person, to make that final judgment call and to finish it. The soundtrack was just absolute. I have no flaws about this game other than the control scheme. Some of the controls were a bit wonky, but other than that, the story, the gameplay, the cinematics, the cinematography, how at certain points in the game where you were getting in an elevator, or when you were having a conversation with your team, or when something was happening, it would cut to a security feed, or it would cut to the security cam in your helmet, and you would see that image, just like we saw in the final scene with Noble Six getting killed by the Covenant soldiers. So yeah, that one really got to me, because that kind of sacrifice, it gave me Mass Effect vibes, with all of the sacrifices that the Normandy team had to make. I liked Noble Six. It was a fun character to play, and it's a juggernaut of a game. And to jump into this first, now I've got context. When I go into Halo One, it's a lot of fun. If you've never played Halo, start with Halo Reach. It was a phenomenal game. I finished it in just over 4 hours. Yeah, it was great. I had a lot of fun with it. Would I play it again? Yes. I feel like this has a lot of replayability. A few of the enemies really did my head in, just because. However, that's a good thing. I like when enemies really goat me into hating them, especially because this isn't just one villain we're dealing with, right? This is the Covenant, so it's an archetype. It's just, there's a hierarchy to it, and there's just so many enemies within that legacy of characters, whether it's the bug people, or which gave me huge Resident Evil vibes with the giant flying cockroaches. It could be down to the little grunts, or the ones with the shields, the juggernauts that came rushing towards you with the swords, the light swords, which was incredibly cool, and the fact that you got to wield it was pretty awesome. I wish that it had an unlimited supply of ammo. I wish that stuff like that didn't have ammo. What else? One of the gripes I had was the vehicular controls. When it came to piloting, it was a lot easier. However, when we were riding the Warthog, it gave me massive Mako vibes from Mass Effect. Right, the control scheme for that in the original Mass Effect on the 360 was just dire, and it was annoying. But luckily I wasn't piloting them enough throughout the game that it was like, okay, it's a deal breaker for me. Cat's death and obviously Carter's, Emil's. Even though I didn't really take to Emil, his death was a shock in the end. I wasn't expecting him in Noble Six to stay behind. I don't know much about Keys, but obviously he's the one that's taking Cortana, so I'm assuming that we're going to see him again in Halo 1. And it's such a fun game. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. I like games that leave a lasting impact on me. I think that is when you have a real winner. Um, which is why I love things like Legend of Zelda and, Witcher and all of these other games, because they leave a lasting impact, especially the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic games. I still think about them constantly. With Halo, and I've said this about a few games, like Final Fantasy VII, the original, even though I didn't get to that until my early 30s, I still kick myself that I never played that when I was a kid. I think obviously I got emotional when Aerith died, but it wasn't to the degree where I was sobbing on the floor. It was just out of shock. Whereas there were moments where I was, starting to break down with these characters' death. Yeah, it's a really good game. I think that the studio behind it did a great. I don't know if it was Bungie 343. A friend says that they basically gave it over to 343 Industries. So I'll need to look into it to see how much of it is, Bungie, and how much of it is 343. But my verdict is a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed this game. I'm not going to let the smaller things diminish the score, like the vehicle controls and things like that. I think this is a great entry point for anyone who wants to get into the Halo franchise. The music, it was very stressful at times, because I was like, okay, it's like the drums, it's like the hard beats, and you're like, oh Jesus, you've got all of these things coming at me at once, the wraiths, and all of the other piloted ships and things like that. Seeing the Covenant carriers and things like that was just amazing. Getting to dogfight in space, I wanted more of that. I think that if they just stretched that out a little bit more, it would have been great. George's death really hit me. That cutscene afterwards, where I'm limping towards the horizon, after George throws me out of the ship, that was stellar. I think, when it comes to sacrifices like that, obviously the character thinks that they're doing it for a noble cause, and I guess in a way it did help a little, but I felt like George was the one who really could have went to the end of the game with Noble Six. But yeah, that was a really touching moment. Him saying, "Make sure they know to make it count." It really stands to point the reason why so many people love this franchise. I will be continuing with Halo 1, because I know that that's the start of Master Chief's legacy, so I am excited to see what happens next. But this was an incredible journey, and even though it was only over 4 hours, it's definitely worth it. I think with a game like this, it doesn't need a 20-hour campaign. It did well on its own. Obviously, I think if you go on to higher difficulties, it'll be a longer campaign. But I'm happy with it. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot of achievements out of it as well, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm going to be thinking about this game for a while. That end sequence though with Noble Six, and then obviously Dr. Halsey speaking in the background when you just see his helmet, because that's the scene that we open up on, is the helmet, and then it goes off to what happened next, which is the prologue of the game when you enter Reach. Incredible performances. What else? Again, the music, the cinematography, the action, it's non-stop. You take a break for a second and instantly you've got grunts and juggernauts and that coming after you. I don't know their real name. It's the ones with the spikes, the big brutes. I think that's what they're called. Yeah, they have an unstoppable factor to them when they're shooting those green energy orbs at you. It's brilliant. I had such a good time with this. Uh, I would love to play it in handheld modes with my ROG Ally and just chill out with it. Now that I've completed it, I can. So yeah, I'm going to be playing this a lot more in the future. So next is Halo 1. Um, I won't start that until tomorrow. I'll add that to the list of games. I'll probably cut it down to an hour of gameplay along with Doom Eternal because I want to finish that and jump onto the other games that I need to finish because I'm starting to get into a rhythm. And now that I'm back making content full time to a degree, it's whenever I'm off work. It's going to be a lot of fun getting into these games. But what did you guys think? If you've played Halo Reach or any of the Halo games or all of them, let me know what really drew you to the series. Was it the multiplayer? Was it the single player campaign? Was it the characters? Was it the music? Was it the cinematography? Was it everything? Um, yeah, it was pretty cool seeing Cortana. Obviously, again, I know about Cortana. I've seen her in screenshots and little clips here and there. Obviously, I don't know the context behind them, but to see an AI who is self-aware, and she's sitting cross-legged and almost as if she's in a meditative state in Dr. Halsey's lab underground. That was a phenomenal set piece. I really liked that, and yeah, it's the carefulness of which you have to get to the Pillar of Autumn to escape with this package with Cortana. Yeah, definitely worth it. So worth it. I'm glad that I got to experience this, even though I came too late because I had the Xbox 360 growing up. I've had the OG Xbox, all of the PlayStations, all of the handhelds, Nintendo 64, things like that. My first console was a PS1 back in '96. I was only 6 years old and my first game was Crash Bandicoot. So I started with platformers, and Mortal Kombat and things like that. When it came to the later games such as Halo, Devil May Cry, I never really got into those. I never played them. So Devil May Cry will be next as well because I've not played those games. But yeah, the writing was stellar. It felt like I was watching a movie half the time. I think if I was just to watch all the cutscenes alone, it would just be immaculate. It was just great. I really, honestly, genuinely had fun with this game. It was emotional. It was heartfelt. It was action packed. The story elements were there. I had hatred for certain characters, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen in Halo 1. But let me know what you guys think about this. The entire gameplay of Halo will be up on my YouTube channel once it's edited and spliced together. But yeah, I've had such a blast with this. I definitely do give it a 10 out of 10. My opinions are my own, and yeah, next is Halo 1. I'm excited. So let me know what you guys think about Halo Reach. Was it your favourite game in the series? No spoilers about any of the other Halo games, but what Halo really drew you into the franchise and made you a fan? Let me know in the comments, and I'll speak to you guys in the next one. Bye.